Okay, I'm back on this project again. Again, this is the base to my D&H Kato Alco PA and N scale. This locomotive doesn't run correctly. The problem being, if I take you in a little bit closer here, is the fact that this was not only had the motor contacts soldered down to the pads, which is common. Also, that wasn't enough. The end user, after these contacts are bent unknowingly, which is what I have a feeling is what happened, decided to solder the actual decoder itself down to these contact points as well. Either that or soldering it down to the contact points, these two lines running across the locomotive, which are essentially the bus system, if you will, for the locomotive, taking the power off the wheels and sending it to the decoder itself. By doing this, essentially bent these contact points, or they were bent unknowingly, and that's why it was soldered down. Whenever the case is irrelevant, these contact lines are now useless because they cannot be essentially bent back, especially after being treated so badly, especially considering all the corrosion on this. And also getting them off is going to be almost impossible. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to focus on getting this decoder out. And I'm going to have to replace these contact lines. Now, for the replacement parts, I was going to hold off on this, but I think I'm going to show it to you now. I've looked on Kato's website, but unfortunately you can get a lot of the parts for the Alco PAs that they used to make, but not the contact lines. They seem to be sold out. What a shock. So here's what I'm going to use. This is a B unit Kato Alco PB, Alco PB, I should say, in Pennsylvania paint scheme. I have no use for these at all because they have to put a separate decoder in them, and they can only be used as two locomotives. I usually keep my trains down to a single locomotive. Sometimes I'll run two, but even then I prefer to have two A units. It just looks nicer. I really don't dig the B units at all, so I don't have much use for this. And the good news is, despite the fact that this is in fact a B unit, unlike a lot of other manufacturers, as we'll see in a second here, let me just pop this out and show you what this locomotive's party piece is. If you look underneath, it has the exact same chassis as the A unit. Exact same pickups, exact same stock board in this case, because this has not been converted and it has not been used. And most importantly, the exact same contact lines. So I can basically take the parts off this and put them on this and fix that up. I may actually attempt to get these contact lines off, but I'm having a feeling because of how badly bodged this is already, there's no way I'm going to get them off. Whatever the case, I've got parts now I can work with. I was going to take, I should say, full disclosure, I was going to actually remove the trucks from this and swap them out, but thinking about it, the trucks still work on this locomotive, and I'm not going to get any more. I may as well run them into the ground before I rebuild them, because there's no advantage in having to do it again. Because in the end, I'll have to reuse the old parts. I'd rather just wear those parts out and then put the others back in if that ever does happen. So without further ado, let me get going on this today. I'm going to have to unsolder these, so I'm going to plug in my soldering iron, get that fired up. Alrighty, I've got my iron all nice and heated up. I'm going to now proceed to take the solder off on these clips here and get them up. To do this, I'm going to be using a solder sucker. This is the one I use. It's an engineer made in Japan, this SS02. This is one of the best ones I've had so far. It really does a great job of pulling the solder off these points. I'm also going to use some lead-free solder. I also have an extractor fan running. As you'll note, as you'll notice, my tone of voice is louder. That's because I'm talking over it. Please pardon that. And of course, one last detail, I'm going to use two various sets of tweezers I have here to help me get these wires up. To help me get these 2 points up without me having to touch this. Again, my usual disclaimer applies. This is dangerous stuff to work with a soldering iron. Make sure you know what you're doing before you proceed. I claim no responsibility. You have been warned. Okay, iron's all set to go. Gonna now go in here and just gently heat up these 2 contact points. And first actually tin my iron. No matter I know this sounds kind of ridiculous, but no matter what you're doing with soldering, you always add more solder to your iron, because you have to have fresh tin on there in order for it to function effectively. And now actually go back and clean my iron a little bit. I always keep a little bit extra again on my iron, the actual tip of it, because I'm in a high humidity environment. So by having extra tin or solder on my iron, so put more on here, and I'm going to now use my cleaning bowl thing here to get rid of it. By having extra tin on it, it allows me to protect the tip from corrosion. The solder will corrode, but again, you can always take the solder off using one of these cleaning tin things like I do, or the traditional solder cleaning pads. As you can see there, that's now a nice clean tip. So with that, I'm now going to go ahead and take the solder off. I tin my iron a bit again. Make sure I have the freshest tin I can have on it. I've got my soldering tweezers in hand. I'm going to attempt now to pull this up. Actually, pardon me, I'm actually going to use my solder sucker, I think, first. Try to get rid of some of this because there is a little bit too much used here. That's typical with soldering operations. I'll try to keep my camera in range. I don't know why this thing keeps going out of focus. Let's go ahead now and get going here. I already felt that go up already. Let's now hit my release on this. There we go. That came up. And if you notice, the thing actually popped up. That shows you how much torque was on there. Again, how this works is you press it down, you push it up. Let me actually press this down. Let me get my iron back in here. So again, what I did there is I released the pump. And I now push it back in again and knock out the solder. If it will work with me. There we go. There it is. Just a little bit's hanging out of there. There we go. That's off. Okay. I'm going to do that again. Again, I've reinitiated it by pressing the button back down again. I'm going to hit this release button once I heat the other one up. And this contact, you see here, actually popped right up because it was under apparently a lot of pressure. So if that all happens with this next, it'll make things very easy for me. Let me go ahead and heat this up again. Okay, let's now do one more solder work. Get the heat right on here. Not too concerned about ruining this decoder because it's already ruined, technically. I don't think I'm ever going to get use out of this because, again, those lines are connected permanently to it now. Let's see if I can get this thing free here. I may have to put some flux paste on this to get it up. Yeah, I think I'm going to need flux because that connection is so dry. Let me go grab some. I may try. I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe here, I'm just going to put some of this lead-free flux on here. Flux paste. This will wet the contacts down. Oh, I shouldn't have. I actually didn't have to do it on this one. That was smart. Oh, yeah. That was really smart. Let me fold this one up to remind myself I don't need to do it. That one over here is the one that is free. This one over here is the one that I just needed to do. Nice and coated. A little bit more solder on the tip here. Oh yeah, that works much better now. Okay. It might help if I actually had my desoldering thingy going here. I don't think I got anything there. There we go. I hope I got some of that out. See, now that I've gotten some of this clear, let's see if I can make it move. Again, I'm not too concerned about this decoder. I really don't think it's worth anything because it's been through so much from the previous owner's install attempts. Let me actually re-hit my thing with solder here again. I got the corroded solder that's off. Ironically enough, I have to apply more to get it to come off. This is typical when removing solder. I'm going to now just try to bend this back because I got as much off of it as I can. There we go, I got it up. I'm pulling up with my soldering iron. There we go, I got it up. And I think I have it free. Yep, it's free. So now the decoder is out, I can now pull this decoder out. I'll leave my iron on, but in its holster stand thing, so I don't have to worry about it not being hot enough to do the job. Let me also clean my sucker out. I think the sucker is in good shape. Yep. Should be good. Okay. So now with the sucker nice and cleaned out, put that back away. I can now remove this board. I know this thing has had a chance to cool off. I'm going to bend these two contacts all the way back carefully. See, they're both free now. And I can now remove this whole board. And oh, okay, so it wasn't soldered to it, which I thought it was. Oh, yes, it was actually. Yeah, if you look at the bottom here, solder was applied to the base here. Looks like they didn't use clean flux on it, so it messed it up. So it was messed up as I thought, and the contact points are now permanently destroyed on this. This solder is all corroded and it's eaten into the board itself. So I explained why I was having so much trouble. Let's take a look at what we have underneath here. There's a bit of carnage to worry about. I'm going to turn my soldering iron off and leave the extractor on for a second to let this any hint of stench out of here. Just unplugged it. Now we look underneath the hood here on the engine. We see we have the two contacts lines running across here. As you can see, it's bent up terribly on this side, and so is it here. This is really what's messed up. It looks like attempting to solder it caused the metal to expand, and that messed the whole thing up. So in turn, it appears that in an attempt to try to enhance the conductivity, the previous owner actually messed things up. As an old saying goes, the path to hell is paved with good intentions, and looks like that's the case with this locomotive. So anyway, I just pulled the one contact line off. It just comes right up. Let me pull the other one up. Get these out of here. And yeah, these are pretty much useless because they're bent out of whack and they're soldered and corroded, and yeah, that's pretty much done. So I'm gonna have to get the ones off my parts locomotive / B unit. This Pennsylvania B unit came with the A unit, which I did a video on. I don't know if I actually ever posted it, where I installed the decoder on it. Here's the B unit itself. I'm going to keep that shell separate. You never know, someone might want it for their project. Just keep it in here and keep it in storage for that purpose. I'm going to go in here now and rob the parts I need to fix this other locomotive. Start with, I'm going to get this out of here. Let me grab it. Sponger and pop this thing off here. I might be able to actually install it using this little piece here. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I put that in my little parts bin on the side here. Okay, here's the board. Very basic. I don't even know how this is connecting power. I guess this whole thing is actually a solid connection. It's even more basic than the standard light board you would get on one of these locomotives. That's gone now. And now we get to what I need to get off this unit, these contact lines. Just to make sure I have them right, I'm just going to take them directly off. What I have to do first actually is put actual Kapton tape around these things. I think my iron is good and cooled off. Now I can turn this off and speak to you in a normal tone. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply Kapton tape to both of these particular contact lines and get them ready for to be installed on here. Let's pull these guys out of the way, make sure I don't confuse them. Let me go get some Kapton tape, which I had sitting here a second ago. Here we go. And I'm going to go ahead now and just apply it and get this project going. So it's going to go. So this should now let me just make sure I have that set up in before I do anything more. Yep, that's correct. I'm going to cut the excess off with a hobby knife now and put that back in place. Okay, and there it goes. It's in place. Sitting perfectly now, unlike before. Gonna now do the same to the next contact line, and I'll pick it up from there. Okay, that took way too long, but I now have everything insulated. This one is a little bit close, but I've checked it, As you can see, it'll just clear well enough, and I've already knocked this out of whack by doing that. All right, now it's back in place. Okay, so that's going to do clear enough. It's kind of a close... You see that is a little bit close on the side there, but it'll be clear enough. I prefer to have them more toward the center, like this one over here on the side is. But I'm going to stop messing with this before I cause any other problems. That is still clear enough where it'll work. Let me go now and grab a decoder for this out of my drawer. Again, the variety for today is going to be in the Digitracks. I use these over and over again. DN163KO. These are designed for the PA, the E8, as well as the P42. I hope I don't have to solder this in place, but I have a feeling I'm going to have to, because that usually happens with the PAs and the older engines without the guides to help guide the contacts in place. You have to end up bodging them a little bit more than you should normally. So let's see here. This is where it's going to go. How you tell the front is really simple. These two contact pads have to line up with these two motor pickup pads here. I'm just going to slide this forward onto the two pickup points here. Going to avoid soldering this because I have a feeling at some point in the future I'm going to have to replace the trucks. But if I have to solder it, I have to solder it. There they are. This is now in place. So again, I slid it back to letting this little catch here, this hook, grab the decoder. Next, I'm going to fold these two contact points down as flat as possible and without twisting them, because I want them to make good contact. This is a little bit tricky with some of these decoders. Next, I'm going to grab this little clip which I threw in here before. Ah, there it is. I have one. I think I had another one in here someplace, but apparently not. I'm going to go now and put this in place as well. That didn't go in right at all, of course. This did not come with the contact clip, by the way. This one is off the other engine that I took it off of, that I took the contact lines off of. The decoder clip, I should say. Most people don't bother. It looks like this clip area here is worn out, and that's why it had to be soldered as well. So I'm going to try one more time to get this in, and I think I'm just going to fire the soldering iron up and just solder these wires back into place. Solder these contacts back into place, because I don't think this is going to work. But I will try one more time, as I would really love to avoid soldering, as I'm probably going to have to take this apart, and I'd make it as botherless as possible on this. Okay, so this clearly isn't going to cooperate. I'm going to go ahead now and fire up my soldering iron and do it that way, because I'm not going to make a mess of this. I do not want to ruin this decoder, nor do I want to mess up these contact lines, so I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and do that. Let's unfold. Oh, that was bad. Did I break anything? No, I didn't. I thought I broke this off. Ooh, yeah. My nerves are frayed with this. I don't want to ruin these contact lines. If they get destroyed, this is the motor connection, which would then mean the motor would have to come out and then be replaced. So, I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to solder everything. I'm going to fire up my iron again. Well, not really the right way, but about the only way that's practical at this point. Let me hit the plus button on my iron to heat it up. Now, let me get some flux out of here. But if need be, if need be, as they say. We go a little bit there. Not even much, just a little bit around here. Then this is no clean flux. It's not a TCS decoder, but I'm going to use the logic in that the other stuff apparently will do a number on the boards. With my iron nicely heated up, which should be at this point, I'm going to go ahead now and tin. And clean it a bit. First step is to tin the pads underneath the actual contacts. Contact lines are going to come in here sideways and just give a gentle touch right there. I like the crackling, even though it's something I should be used to. I still don't dig it when it does that. Let's go around the other way now. I tin my iron again. Okay, so that actually worked out much better. Let me actually go across and tin the other side as well. Look, there we go. That's much better. Okay, so now with that, I'm going to now bend these contact lines over. Let me go get... Another thing that just came to mind, there have been some out there to say that I said I should use liquid paste, well, solder paste. Well, according to TCS and other companies' instructions, you really can't, because apparently this will do a number on the board, or so I'm told. And so as a result of that, you really can't use those kinds of things. You have to just sort of work with this and just make it work, as I showed you with the tinning process. Let's go now and push this back down again. I'm going to attempt now to solder this to the actual contact. Let me actually bend this over a little bit and get my iron out of here. I got to bend these contacts over, get them in better position so they will go in. Okay, so I want it held. So what I'm going to do now is I want to get some solder on my iron and just press that into position. And hold it in there until it seals up to until the new solder that I put on the iron will bond with the solder on the actual contact. I don't know if there's any solder left on this from the previous owner's install. If there is, it'll make things easier. I don't know. There we go. It's in place, and that one's soldered. That one connection is good. Gotta make sure this decoder stays in position because I won't be able to move it once this is in place. Let's do the next one. I'm doing a lot of solder today, aren't I? Not the smoothest connection, but that'll work fine. Okay. So with that, I think I have both connections done. Let me inspect them and make sure that what I've done here is I've soldered both of these connections down. That's the way it ought to be. So you see, there's no corrosion on them. They're a very clean contact. That should work perfectly now. Should. Operative word. I'm going to go now and check my work out to make sure it's good. Let me actually just check with the tweezers to make sure this one is in place. Very carefully here. I know it takes a lot of courage to do something like this. Is that down? I think it is. Oh yeah, that's down. So you see that is over. That's a little bit it went over the top. That's fine. The rest is making contact. The idea is more to hold this contact in place on top of the solder than it is to actually make contact with it. You don't want too much making contact because that can actually affect the voltage of the unit of the connection. Let me go zoom you out as I put this on my test track, and we'll check to see if I have this done right. I'm going to turn my iron off because I actually need to plug to run my DCC system. I'm going to leave the thing plugged in just in case. Okay, everybody, smoke test. Let's see what happens. Plugging in right now, if it'll cooperate. Nope, didn't go in. Must have bent this plug here. Okay, everybody, smoke test. It's plugged in. Let's see what happens. Nothing. That could be good or bad. Oh, I see. It helps to have your DCC system plugged into the actual track you're working on, folks. I was just testing you there. Too many wires. Way too many wires. All right, everybody. Cross your fingers. Smoke test. Let me know what goes off. Well, actually, I'll see too. Yep, there we go. It's on. There's no smoke. And I should actually put my knife away too. That would be really great if I didn't have that out there. Sharp objects pointing right at me. Pardon me, folks. Okay. Let's go now give this a test. It's in forward mode now. Let's go reverse. Yep, that works. And do we have motion? Let's go backwards. Nothing. Oh, wait, there we go. Okay. Forward again. A little hesitant to move. That freaks me out a little, but it does work. Okay, it looks like I've got this thing working. I dare say I fixed it. By Jove, I think I fixed it. Okay, that is working. Let me do a conductivity test. The light is flickering a little bit more than I'd like, which usually means something is screwy with it. So let's take a look here. Uh-oh, here we go again. Front line isn't making good contact. This one in the frac here is in perfect shape, but the other one isn't. Oh, I see what happened. This wasn't properly aligned in here. The coder shifted a little bit. Let me go guide this in place now. Okay, that's it. Let's try that now. This is what I hate about these things. These lines can move. It's great that they're movable, I mean, but, well, normally it would be, but it's not here. Okay, that's much better now. Now I got power on the front. Little hesitation there, but it'll work well. But that's acceptable. It's all right for it to flicker occasionally as long as you're getting some power from it. I'm going to keep messing with these connections to make sure they're better. This one's also now at an angle. I have to twist this contact a little bit. I hate doing that. There it is. Now it's in place. Okay, let's check it now. Trick with this is to go through the tedious parts of the installation and constantly check things. If you want to make sure you got it right. There's a little hesitation still on this, but I think that'll work itself out as it runs in there for a while. The other side, how's that working? I use a plastic sponger to press down here. I think I knocked it back in place. I heard it click. That could be good or bad. Might be bad. Oh yeah, now that side isn't working either. Oh, there it is. Now it's working. Okay. Wasn't on the track. I know this is a crazy test I do, but it's just to make sure I'm getting power. That's much better now. Okay, I fixed it. Okay, one last test back and forth. It's not perfect, but that's typical with these PAs. They don't pick up power perfectly. Let me cut my fan off so I can stop screaming. Power up. There you go. Hesitates to move. That's the one thing that does freak me out. But there is a connection made. It just takes a second for the motor to spin up. I'm not sure if that's bad BMF on the decoder. Okay, so it looks like I dare say I fixed this thing. Alrighty, let me go get the shell out of here, and I shall place it on top. And I'll do a final test, and I will program it. The shell I have in the same box, in the same drawer I put that in, I think, don't I? Yep, there it is. See, I keep the shell separate from the drivetrain because I didn't want anything to get damaged. Go now and put this in place here. Making sure that the lead goes again to this, the nose goes again to this little sloped area. Let's go now and carefully place this in position. Just press it down. There we go. Put it back on the track and see if we get any smoke. Hopefully we won't. Lights flickered. I didn't like that. Okay, do I have power now? Do I have front headlights? Uh-oh, I don't have any power again. This always happens with these engines with this type of decoder in it. You put the shell on, it literally changes the profile and it stops the engine from working. Oh. And you wonder why Kato doesn't make these PAs anymore, at least not in this design. Well, that's partly the reason. Although, admittedly, I think it's lack of sales. But had they been sales, at least I think it is. Whatever the case, had the company refined these just a little bit more, I think we would have less problems with them. So let me see now. I have a feeling now when I put it on the track, I should get power. No, I have nothing. That's my DCC system contact. No, it's got power. That's strange. Let me try the headlight button again. It's running so well, and now it's... Oh, Okay, that's decoder isn't sitting again flat. Okay, let me fix that very quickly. I'm going to use Kapton tape to tape it down. This happens occasionally. I'm not going to go the foolish route of, as I found this never works, to actually utilize solder to do it, as one would think that's the right way to handle it, but all it does is shrink or cause the contact lines to expand or corrode, and once any of that happens, you're done. The only real way to fix it at this point is to use this. Can't seem to win on these things. Let me go grab my X-Acto knife, cut some more tape. You see here what makes this thing power up. I don't necessarily recommend doing that, but it does work like that. Okay, so this needs to be down like that to make it work. So let's go put Kapton across the top. The reason why I use Kapton is because this will resist heat. That should now fix any problems I had with conductivity. The front truck now isn't getting power. Okay, so one more piece of tape on the front should fix that problem. Let me go grab another piece over here. I have one more bit of conductivity problems on the front. Where's that other decoder? This is the piece I got from the decoder itself. Let me put that in here because I can't use it because it's right here. I may as well just use it. You always get a piece of this with the Digitrax decoders. Let me go see if that works the way it should. It should. Does it? I don't know. Let us check this out when I put the shell on top. Okay, let's try this one more time now with my new bodge repair done. Yep, I got a headlight, so that fixed that. It's not going to have perfect conductivity, but that's typical with the PAs. If I mess around with it much more, I'm just going to ruin another decoder. This is a huge improvement over what it was before. It's not perfect pickup, but it works. As opposed to before where it didn't function at all. There it is, running nice and smooth. Again, conductivity and power are not the greatest thing in the world for this thing, but it does work. Ooh, it stopped again. I don't know exactly why it's so sensitive here. Let's go running backward again. Okay, let's go forward. I think the front truck is not doing so well on pickup here. Yep, nothing at all now. With the shell down, it doesn't get anything, so I need to mess with this a little bit more, apparently. Okay. Don't be afraid to go over and redo your work. I think that'll work better now. I think I fixed that. Let's try this now. Oh, that's much better. I think the problem is this contact line does not want to stay in place here. Oh, I hate these things with a passion. What I like on the F40s is they now have a physical clip that goes on top of these contact pickup things and forces them down into position the way they're supposed to be, so you don't have to worry about this happening. Whereas these older models don't have that. They just have a conduit to guide this in place, but there's nothing to press it down to make sure it stays in place. So it's really a bad design. And unfortunately, Kato never re-released them, so unlike the P42s, which did get an update in more recent times, I think it happened after sometime after 2012 when I temporarily exited N-Scale. As I noticed, my equipment before 2012 didn't have that. But once 2012 came around, sometime after 2012, I should say, I think probably 2013 or 14, apparently Kato decided, okay, time to refresh this, and they fixed it. So this works now if I press this down hard. So I need to now put some Kapton tape here, or just reposition this tape, which I have in place here. There he goes. That's much better now. Hopefully this contact will bend itself in better position as I run it. What else can I do to put a little bit more torque on this thing? Okay, I think that'll do much better now. Let's try this again. Test, will it go over the top? Yes, it will. Without cutting out. Power's on. Let's try it again. Don't necessarily recommend doing what I've been doing with this thing being tested like this. Let's see if she'll work. Ooh. Yep, that's pretty good. Yep, that's taking care of the power problem. Okay, so I've got it under control now. Wasn't running well before. It's running a lot better now. I'm going to call that a success. I can't really do too much to this more without causing more damage to it. So I'm going to keep it like it is and just enjoy it. I may eventually have to re-chassis this thing depending upon how bad this gets. Unless I can find parts to build this thing. The reason being is that to get parts to fix one of these engines, you're going to have to buy a parts locomotive. So you may as well look for one, in this case, with silver trucks on it, and just swap the chassis out. For the time being, though, I'm going to run it like this and just have fun with it and enjoy it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. Please like and subscribe. And as always, keep the metal side down.